Hello everyone. This video will go through the story of the series of Dragon Age. In Dragon Age Origin, the player character may be of different race and class: human noble, magi, the wolf noble, the wolf commoner, city elf, or Dalish elf. Different story happens according to the player character's origin, the result being the same. He lives with Duncan, the commander of Ferelden's Grey Warden, who, seeking new recruits, selects the player as the potential candidate. The Grey Wardens are an order of warriors of exceptional ability, dedicated to fighting Darkspawn throughout Thedas. Periodically, Darkspawn find and corrupt one of the old gods, ancient draconic creatures slumbering in the depths of the earth, which is transformed into an archdemon and leads the Horde to attack the surface world, and this is called a blight. The two journey to Ferelden's southern fortress, Ostegard, to join Cailan, the king of Ferelden, and his father-in-law, Logain, a legendary general and close friend of Cailan's father. The three leaders plan to attack the encroaching Darkspawn to stop a new blight from overwhelming Ferelden. Duncan senses the influence of an archdemon, which makes this the first true blight in over 400 years. Duncan emphasizes the importance of defeating the blight before it can gain enough momentum to threaten the rest of Thedas. Duncan initiates the player character into the Grey Wardens via a dangerous ritual called joining, which involves imbibing Darkspawn blood. The recipient, if they survive, is granted powerful Darkspawn essence, the Taint, which gives them a rudimentary connection into their hive mind to sense them. After surviving, the player character, now nicknamed the Warden, and fellow Grey Warden Alistair, are tasked with lighting a beacon at the top of the fortress to signal Logain's men into charging the Darkspawn Horde flank. However, upon arriving, Logain abandons the battlefield, leaving Cailan, Duncan, and their army to be slain by Darkspawn, who seize control of Ostegard and begin advancing into southern Ferelden. The Warden and Alistair are saved by Flameth, a powerful witch who lives in a secluded hermitage. Flameth sends her daughter and apprentice, Morrigan, to accompany the Warden and Alistair in gathering a new army to combat Archdemon and stop the Blight. Using ancient Grey Warden treaties, the Warden travels across Ferelden to enlist the aid of Circle of Magi, the Dalish Elves, the Dwarves of Ozamar, and soldiers in Redcliffe loyal to Al-Eamon. During the journey, Alistair revealed that he is a bastard son of King Merrick, making him a contender for the now vacant throne. The Warden recruits more companions into his party, as well as get involved in the conflict between Magi and Templars. In Thedas, conventional magic originates from the Fade, the realm where spirits dwell, and where humans, Qunari, and elves visit when they dream. For non-mages, entering the Fade while dreaming is a fleeting experience. But for mages, they are fully conscious during the entire incident. The act of drawing power from the Fade can draw the attention of the spiritual being on the other side of the veil, leading to an increased risk of demonic possession if the mages are not vigilant enough. A possessed mage becomes a distortion of his or her former self, a twisted monster known as an abomination that has enough power to wipe the entire village off the map. For this reason, magical practice is strictly restrained in Circle of Magi in Ferelden, supervised by Templar Order. Templars are a military order of Andrastianism, the dominant religion throughout Thedas. Meanwhile, Logain returns to Ferelden's capital city, Denerim, to inform his daughter, Queen Anora, of Cailan's death. Logain scapegoats the Grey Wardens for the defeat at Ostegard and demands the death of any survivors. While Anora inherits her husband's authority, Logain quickly declares himself her regent and effectively seizes control of the kingdom, swiftly becoming a brutal and tyrannical ruler determined to retain power. Ferelden's nobility rebel against him, igniting a civil war. This ends in an inconclusive stalemate, allowing the Darkspawn to advance further into Ferelden unopposed. Eamon then calls a landsmeet among the nobles of Ferelden to rally the kingdom against the Darkspawn, where the Warden defeats Logain in a duel. The Wardens then settles who assume Ferelden's throne, either Alistair or Anora. The night before the final battle, the Warden learns that the Grey Warden must slay the Archdemon to prevent it from releasing the demonic essence, which finds a new host in the nearest Darkspawn. The essence will be joined to the taint, killing the Warden in the process. Morrigan then meets with the Warden and proposes a ritual that will see her conceive a child with him. The Archdemon, upon death, will instead be joined to the child, born as a demigod with the taint, sparing the Warden who slays it. Morrigan agrees to conceive the child, on the condition that she be allowed to raise it alone. The next day, the Warden and the newly assembled army of Ferelden gather in Denerim. They repel the Darkspawn horde and finally conquer the Archdemon atop Denerim's highest tower. The Warden slays the Archdemon and the remaining Darkspawn retreat from Denerim, marking the end of the Fifth Blight. In a ceremony attended by Ferelden citizens, the Warden and his companions are honored for saving the kingdom. 6 months later, in the land of Emeraldine, the Warden, now the Grey Warden commander, travels to Vigil's keep to assume command of Grey Warden's Stair. However, the keep is discovered to have been assaulted by Darkspawn, and something amiss is noticed, as such an organized attack would have taken an intelligent leader to direct, something thought impossible without the presence of an Archdemon. The Warden is able to clear the keep with the aid of Myri, an able female warrior and prospective Grey Warden, and 2 others, Anders, an apostate mage who seeks refuge away from the Tower of Magi, and Ogren, a dwarven berserker and the Warden's former companion. A new talking Darkspawn is discovered to have been the leader of the enemy forces and is defeated. With the keep secured, the Warden then sets forth on a journey to help garner support for the Grey Wardens and new recruits join the Order's ranks, while also looking for clues as to solve the mystery of the intelligent Darkspawn. Myri, Anders, and Ogren all undergo the joining. Myri dies, while the other 2 survive. The Warden journeys to several locations and recruits party members who may undergo the joining ritual to become Grey Wardens. These members are Nathaniel Howe, an assassin and son of Isle Randon Howe; Valana, a Dalish mage exiled from her clan; Sigrun, a dwarf and member of the Legion of Dead; and Justice, a spirit trapped in the body of deceased Grey Warden. Along his travels, the Warden meets the Architect, a strange Darkspawn figure whose intention remains unclear, and learns about the Mother, who is a sentient broodmother, a breed of Darkspawn capable of spawning thousands of other Darkspawn. After recruiting all available party members, the Warden learns of an oncoming war. As Darkspawn advance towards the city of Emeraldine, the Warden travels to the city with a small band of allies, but soon learns of another Darkspawn force that is headed for Vigil's keep. Depending on his decisions, the Warden may either order Emeraldine to be burned down after deeming it too late to be saved, causing all the Darkspawn and civilians inside to die, and head back to the keep, or stay and fight to rid Emeraldine of Darkspawn forces, thus forcing Vigil's keep to be on its own against Darkspawn attack there. Regardless of his choice, the Warden aids in the destruction of the enemy forces, and then travels to Drake's Fall, where the Mother is presumed to be residing. The Warden meets the Architect once again, and learns of his intention to free the Darkspawn from the impulse to commence a blight, and annihilate the corrupted Mother. The Warden may either ally with the Architect or kill him. He then locates the Mother, where he learns of the ongoing antagonism between the Architect and the Mother, and finds out that the Architect had been the one who had awakened Archdemon from the beginning after a failed experiment. Ultimately, the Warden kills the Mother. The threat of Darkspawn being eradicated, crisis continues to brew up in Ferelden in the following years, one of which is the deteriorating relationship between Mages and Templars. Cassandra, a member of the Seekers of Truth, which supervised the Templar Order, investigates the whereabouts of Hawk, the champion of Kirkwall. She captures and interrogates Varric, demanding to know how Hawk started a war between the Mages and Templars. After he initially spawned a fanciful version of Hawk's escape from the Blight, which is quickly rejected by Cassandra, Veilguard cooperates and tells her how the Mage Templar War really started. The story starts shortly after the Battle of Ostagar, with the Hawk family escaping their home village of Lothring in Ferelden with the Darkspawn horde in pursuit. They are joined by Evelyn, though her husband Wesley and Carver, Hawk's brother, are killed in the process. Flemeth, a witch who can assume the form of a dragon, intervenes and helps the party escape to Kirkwall, a city across the sea, on the condition that Hawk travels to the Dalish clan, based in Sundermount, a mountain located near Kirkwall, and complete a task for her. Hawk enters the service of a mercenary band to enter Kirkwall, after which the family takes up residence in the city's low town with their maternal uncle Gamlen. A year later, a prosperous opportunity presents itself to Hawk. Varric and his brother Bartran are planning a risky but rewarding treasure-hunting expedition into the perilous region of the Deep Roads. Varric partners with Hawk to acquire funding and knowledge of the region. Hawk enlists the aid of Anders, a former Grey Warden who possesses knowledge of Deep Roads. The expedition proves both a financial success and a tragedy. The proceeds make Hawk famous and wealthy, enabling them to buy back their family mansion in High Town. However, a very powerful magical idol made of red lyran corrupts Bartran's mind and causes him to betray Hawk and Varric. Additionally, Hawk's sister, Bethany, is conscripted into the Circle of Magi. 3 years later, the Viscount of Kirkwall summons Hawk to help resolve a political situation the foreign military forces of Conari have caused. The Conari, who were shipwrecked in Kirkwall 3 years earlier, neither obey the laws of Kirkwall nor seem willing to leave in the foreseeable future, escalating tension between them and the inhabitants of Kirkwall. As well, Hawk's mother, Leandra, is kidnapped by a blood mage serial killer preying on Kirkwall's women. Hawk resolves to uncover the identity of the serial killer, who uses the victim's body to reconstruct his deceased wife. He kills the killer, but unfortunately fails to save his mother. Eventually, Hawk discovers the reason the Conari refused to leave Kirkwall is because Isabella stole a coveted artifact from them. When she flees Kirkwall with the artifact, the Conari leader, the Arishok, decides to attack Kirkwall and ultimately execute the Viscount. Hawk's party successfully retakes Kirkwall, and Hawk defeats Arishok in a duel. For their actions, Hawk is declared the champion of Kirkwall. Over the next 3 years, Kirkwall has been turned into a police state under the tyrannical rule of Templar Order. Under the command of Knight Commander Meredith, they aim to oppress mages for their alleged use of blood magic or any other forbidden techniques. Meredith is challenged by First Enchanter Orsino, the Circle of Magi leader in Kirkwall, who tries to topple her with public support. Constant violence between the two sides forces Hawk to intervene, during which a group of anti-Meredith rebels kidnap his sister. Fearing for their loved one's safety, Hawk attempts to get away from the conflict. However, Anders orchestrates a massive explosion that levels the Chantry and kills Grand Cleric Elthina. This triggers a final decisive battle between the mages and Templars across the city, as Meredith is determined to proceed with a mass extermination of mages in Kirkwall as a result of Elthina's death, forcing Hawk to choose a side. He chooses to protect mages from Meredith and her Templars. During the fight, Orsino turns into abomination due to his fury in using blood magic. Hawk and his party finally confront Meredith, who bought the lyrium idol from Bartran and is driven mad by her paranoid delusions. She cannot control the lyrium power, which proves also harmful to her. After he defeats Meredith, Hawk leaves Kirkwall as a hero to mages. The circles of Magi all over Thedas have followed Kirkwall's example and rebelled, with the Templar Order breaking away from the Chantry to fight them. Satisfied with his story, Cassandra lets Varric go and leaves with Liliana. 4 years after Kirkwall Rebellion, the Mage Templar War is temporarily halted by a conclave near the village of Haven, orchestrated by Divine Justinian V, leader of the Chantry. The player character regains consciousness in the Fade at the conclave, with no idea what happened. A female figure of golden light helps him to escape the encroaching fearing demons and to return to the material world. where he blacks out once again. Hours later, the player character awakens in the Haven Chantry dungeons, finding himself in chains, and with a strange glowing green mark on his left palm. As he is interrogated by Liliana and Cassandra, the left and right hands of Justinia respectively, he learns that the explosion had killed every other Conclave attendee, including the Divine herself, and ripped a massive tear in the veil high above the remains of Temple, the breach. While the interrogators suspect the player character of being involved with the explosion, they recognize that using his mark is their best hope of closing the breach before it grows even larger. Given little choice, the player character follows Cassandra outside, making their way towards the breach. En route, they encounter Varric, a former companion of Champion of Kirkwall, and Solars, an elven mage, well-versed on fate rifts and spirits, and who helped the player character to use his mark to close a fate rift. Arriving at the ruined temple, they found a massive rift at the center of the ruins, which was the first one to open and is connected directly to the breach. After the demons coming out of the rift are defeated, the player character uses his mark to seal it, passing out from exhaustion afterwards. 3 days after the battle at Temple, the player character awakens in Haven to discover that he has since been proclaimed hero of injustice by the people, thanks to his heroic actions in stabilizing the breach, and to his miraculous rescue from the fate by a mysterious female figure, who many believe to have been Injustice herself. With the Chantry effectively leaderless, Liliana and Cassandra invoke one of the Divine's last orders to re-establish the Inquisition, an ancient order predating the Chantry, formed to defend against the dangers of magic and heretics, and position the Herald as fledgling organization's figurehead. They are joined by Cullen as leader of the organization's military forces, and Josephine as the organization's chief diplomat. Mother Giselle, one of the more forward-thinking clerics, suggests the Herald to travel to Val Royal to get official recognition by the Chantry, but the Inquisition is denounced by both the Chantry and the Seekers of Truth. Lord Seeker Lucius then abruptly withdraws all of the Templar Order forces from the capital. On his orders, most of the Templar Order retreated to Terranfire Redoubt in Ferelden, and have since rejected any attempt to negotiate. Only after Liliana and Josephine secured the backing of multiple Elysian nobles does the Lord Seeker relent and extend an invitation to the Inquisition. Upon arrival, however, the Herald quickly discovered this to be a trap, as the Templar officers, who belong to a splinter faction calling themselves Red Templars, start slaughtering guests and their own subordinates, revealing themselves to be corrupted by Red Lyrium. With the help of loyal Knight Templar Darian Barris, the Herald and their companions find their way to the Lord Seeker, only to discover that his form has long been usurped by an envy demon, who pulls the Herald into a battle of wills inside his own mind. The Herald receives unexpected help from a friendly spirit of compassion, Cole, who guides him to regain control of his mind. Back in the real world, Envy, with its true form revealed, hides behind a magical barrier and compels Red Templars and lesser demons to defend it. With the help of Barris and a few uncorrupted Templars, the Herald purges Envy's barrier and faces Envy in battle. After the demon is slain, the remains of Templar Order offer their unconditional support in sealing the breach. The Inquisition moves quickly and a ritual to fully seal the breach succeeds without a hitch. However, as the Inquisition and their new ally celebrate, Darian Paris arrives at Haven Gates, warning that rebel mages have been indoctrinated by Corypheus, and they are attacking Haven. While the Inquisition evacuates Haven residents through a secret mountain passage, the Herald leads a desperate defense of the village, who uses a trebuchet to bury the entire village along with the bulk of Corypheus' army under an avalanche. Corypheus himself attempts to reclaim the Herald's mark with a mysterious orb, but the mark is now bound to the Herald permanently. The Herald escapes, firing the trebuchet in the last moment. Corypheus is whisked away by his dragon, while the Herald falls into an underground cavern. Regaining consciousness, he stumbles through the freezing mountains until he finds the Haven refugees' trail and eventually catch up with them. With the morale of the Haven survivors dangerously low, Solars encourages Herald to take reign of the Inquisition and reveals to him the location of Skyhold, an ancient abandoned fortress in the Frostback Mountains that can serve as their new base of operations. After a long trek through the mountains, the Inquisition claimed Skyhold, where Cassandra and Liliana proclaimed Harold as supreme leader, the Inquisitor, as the entire organization celebrates him. Varric introduces the Inquisitor to his old friend Hawk, the champion of Kirkwall. They travel to Crestwood and seek out Hawk's Grey Warden ally, Stroud, who informs them the sudden disappearance of all Grey Wardens from Olay and Ferelden. Having recently begun hearing the calling all at once, the Wardens are enacting a desperate plan to complete their Order's ultimate goal of preventing future blights before the Taint wipe them out. They will march into the Deep Roads and kill the 2 remaining Old Gods before the Darkspawn can corrupt them into Archdemons. At an old Tevinter ruin in the western approach, the Wardens are carrying out demon-binding rituals under the supervision of Tevinter Magister Livius Arimont, a devoted acolyte of Corypheus, who created the fake calling in the first place and had a nightmare demon amplified to manipulate Wardens. What Arimont doesn't tell the Wardens is that the ritual that bound demon to Warden mages also bound the mages themselves to Corypheus' will, giving him a massive army of mages and demons to conquer Thedas with. After clashing with the Inquisitor and Hawk, Arimont and the Wardens retreat to Edamont Fortress. Having no other options but to storm the fortress head-on, the Inquisitor spearheads the assault and confronts Warden Commander Clariel just as she is about to summon the nightmare itself, revealing Corypheus and Arimont's deception and appealing to the Warden's honor. The Inquisitor manages to sway Clariel, but Arimont summons Corypheus' dragon to kill her and the Inquisitor. Clariel battles Arimont, but is mortally wounded by the dragon, and her last spell goes awry, shattering the walkway under the Inquisitor's party. Before they plummet to their death, the Inquisitor opens a rift in air and drops himself and his companions into the Fade instead. Finding themselves physically in the Fade, the Inquisitor's party receives help from spirit of late Divine Justinia V, who reveals that the Inquisitor's mark was granted by him accidentally picking up Corypheus' orb on the day of the Conclave, and the female figure having helped him to escape the Fade last time was in fact Justinia herself. The Inquisitor and his companions eventually locate a rift that will take them back to the waking world. When the Nightmare Demon blocks their way, the Inquisitor is forced to leave Stroud behind to buy the rest time to escape. Returning to Edamont Fortress, the Inquisitor closes the rift and slays the remaining demons, gaining the support of Grey Wardens. Arimont is executed Skyhold for his crimes. Josephine has followed up on the discovery of an assassination plot against the Empress Selene of Olay, which might be orchestrated by Corypheus, and suspect that attempt will be made at Winter Palace in Halan Shira, where the Empress is currently negotiating with Grand Duke Gaspar, her opponent in the ongoing Elysian Civil War. The Inquisitor accepts Grand Duke Gaspar's invitation to the Winter Palace, where his sister Floriana is throwing a ball to facilitate peace talks between the Empress and the Grand Duke. Exploring the palace, the Inquisitor finds evidence that Venatori, a cult revering Corypheus, have infiltrated it, which is confirmed by Morrigan, the Emperor's newest occult advisor. During the evening ball, Grand Duchess Floriana hints to the Inquisitor that they can find further evidence of plot in a restricted royal wing of the palace, where they run into her trap. The Duchess admits working for Corypheus, and sends mercenaries and Venatori to delay the Inquisitor while she assassinates the Empress. The Inquisitor escapes the trap and catches up with Floriana just in time to save the Empress' life. The Civil War officially ends with condemning the Grand Duke Gaspar as traitor of empire, and the Sovereign of Olay pledges their military support to the Inquisition and appoints Morrigan as their liaison in Skyhold. With his plans to conquer the South Cedars through military might or political deceit thwarted, Corypheus abandons his strongholds and relocates his followers deep into the Arbor Wilds, ransacking ancient elven ruins as they go. Taking the Inquisitor to the crossroads through the alluvion she had found repaired and later brought to Skyhold, Morrigan explained that she believes Corypheus to be searching for an intact alluvion of his own as a way to reach the crossroads. where he can then tear down the barriers and physically enter the Fade to claim the power of God. Calling upon their allies, the Inquisition mounted an assault on the Arbor Wilds, facing fierce resistance from Corypheus' remaining forces. In the midst of battle, the Inquisitor and Morrigan lead a small force through the enemy lines to find the long-abandoned Temple of Mathiel, where the Illuvian is located. At its gates, they learn that Corypheus actually seeks an artifact named the Well of Sorrows, and witness him be seemingly destroyed by Temple's magical defenses, only to be instantly resurrected by transferring his essence to a Grey Warden corpse. The party then follows Corypheus' general, Copnir, into the temple, shutting its gates before he can follow in person. Exploring the temple, the Inquisitor's party encounters Ablos, leader of the Elven Defenders of the Temple, who offers an alliance against Corypheus to protect the Well of Sorrows. When Morrigan and Inquisitor press Ablos to let them search the Well's knowledge for a way to defeat Corypheus, the elf warns them that whoever drinks from it will be forever bound to the Well of Mathiel. But Morrigan points out that they will also have complete control over the temple's Illuvian, denying it to Corypheus. As soon as Morrigan drinks from the Well of Sorrows, Corypheus catches up with them, but the party flees through the Illuvian back to Skyhold, denying Corypheus to the crossroads. The Inquisitor and Morrigan discover that Morrigan's mother, Flameth, is in fact the vessel of elven goddess Mathiel. Flameth then imparts upon them the knowledge that if Corypheus' red Lyrian dragon is slain, Corypheus' ability to endlessly come back to life will be disrupted, giving them a chance to kill him for good. With his plans in ruins and his followers defeated by the Inquisition, Corypheus plays his final desperate gamble. Returning to the ruined haven, he uses the orb to reopen the breach, challenging the Inquisitor to one final battle before either stepping through into the Fade or destroying Thedas if he cannot rule it. When the Inquisitor arrives, Corypheus sends his red Lyrian dragon off them, but it is intercepted by another dragon shapeshifted by Morrigan, and the two beasts battle in air while the Inquisitor fights Corypheus on the ground. The red Lyrian dragon ultimately prevails, but sustains heavy injuries, allowing the Inquisitor to finish it off. With the dragon's death, Corypheus' immortality is lost, and in the ensuing battle, he loses control over the orb. Using his mark, the Inquisitor rips it from Corypheus' hands and uses its power to seal the breach permanently. The Inquisitor then opens a Fade rift inside Corypheus, destroying his physical body and banishing his essence to the Fade. In the aftermath of the battle, Solus finds the orb irreparably damaged, and it is pointed at his failure to save it, leaving without further explanation. The Inquisition returns to Skyhold to celebrate their victory. 2 years later, under increasing pressure from Orlais and Ferelden, newly elected Divine Victoria, Cassandra, calls for an exalted council at Winter Palace to determine the future of the Inquisition. The exalted council is derailed when Liliana finds a dead Qunari soldier in the palace, and the Inquisitor follows the blood trail to a fully active Illuvian, leading to the crossroads, where the Inquisitor reveals the Qunari's plan to infiltrate Winter Palace. A former Templar converted to Khun warns them that Qunari leader, known as Vidar Sala, has been stockpiling both troops and Lyrium as part of a plot called Dragon's Breath. Catching up with Vidar Sala, the Inquisitor learns that Dragon's Breath was a plot to assassinate most of Southern leaders in preparation for a Qunari takeover, and her plan has been disrupted by Solus, the agent of an elven god, Fenharrow. At the meantime, the Mark gets increasingly unstable and threatens to kill the Inquisitor. They chase the Vidar Sala through multiple Illuvians, but although she reaches Solus before the Inquisitor can catch up, Solus turns her to stone with a blink of an eye. Solus then reveals that he is in truth the elven god Fenharrow, who is also called Dreadwolf, and that he plans to destroy the Veil by using the Fenharrow's orb and restore the world of ancient elves. Because he was too weak to reclaim the Fenharrow's orb after waking from 1,000 years slumbering, he had manipulated Corypheus to find the orb, though he didn't expect the consequence. Solus severs the Inquisitor left arm, to prevent Mark from killing him and leaves. Hours later, the Inquisitor returns to the exalted council and announces to disband the Inquisition, which entirely relieves its threat both Olay and Ferelden. The peace in South Cedars is restored, while the threat from Dreadwolf is looming.